Okay, hi everyone. This is Lance with HealthySimulation.com. Today we're doing a free webinar on how to get a SimTech job. So this is a question I get asked quite a lot. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone on the webinar real quick here. You can see that if you need to talk, you can just enter into the chat room, and we can deal with that there. If you have any questions as we move through, so I'm going to mute everyone except for Brian. 1 second. Okay, so Brian actually was the one who initiated this round of questions with regards to becoming a sim tech, and that was a few weeks ago. And we finally were able to set up a time and place where we could record an engagement, so we could provide this kind of a resource to those who ask this question of healthysimulation.com in the future of, hey, how do you really become a sim tech? What does it take? So just before we get into learning a little bit more about Brian, where he's at, I just want to share a little bit about my particular background so everyone can get a little bit of experience of why I might be able to really answer this question. My background is in audio video production, where I got from UC Santa Cruz. I worked in Hollywood for about 4 years before I went back to school and became an EMT and firefighter. Shortly after that time, I was introduced to healthcare simulation mannequins, and so all of my worlds kind of came brilliantly together. Ever since that time, I've been working in simulation. So probably about I want to say 6 years now, something like that. I basically became a simulation technician for many of the colleges in the Los Angeles Community College District. Um, and had a wonderful time working there. But then was after that was hired to become the director of the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas in in Las Vegas, obviously, and ran that facility from 2009 to 2012. And during that time, I also launched a couple of other entrepreneurial projects, some of which we'll get into today, that are specifically addressing the career and support for healthcare simulation technology specialists, or SimTechs for short, um, and websites like healthysimulation.com and more great resources. So we'll get into a lot of that kind of stuff about the other resources that I now kind of run full time as a permanent position after having left the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas. So I've been to dozens and dozens and dozens of conferences. I've been to hundreds of centers all around the United States and around the world. I've met with vendors of various types of products. And so I really got really kind of passionate about this technology and this career path. So it's always fun to meet people as they come from different kind of backgrounds, because no one was educationally, professionally trained to become a sim tech. So how do anyone who comes to this career at this point is kind of sidestepping from a different career, just like I came from audio video and a little bit of a medical with firefighting. Other people I've met come from an IT backgrounds and other types of backgrounds, and we'll get to some of those backgrounds. But it's about where this community is specifically coming from. But it's so great because everyone brings such unique experiences and knowledge to this field, and so bringing this community together so that they can share those strengths of those previous careers, I think, is something that I'm really passionate about because it's a lot of fun. So with that being said, Brian, you want to go ahead and tell me a little bit about what your background is and why you're looking into becoming a healthcare simulation technology specialist, and a little bit about what you're looking for here today?
Absolutely. Um, Really first started about a couple of years ago. I happened to see an article in the Las Vegas Review Journal newspaper. I'm originally from California, and I'm now currently living in Florida. And so I regularly go back to Las Vegas Sun and Las Vegas Review Journal, and they actually had an article in there about the simulation clinic that had just opened, and so it kind of sparked my interest a little bit. I did a little more research, actually found the website. Not a lot of information there, a lot more just explaining what the center was and what it did. Um, Kind of put it in the background. I had looked at, there's a big simulation complex in Orlando, but again, more towards military, not necessarily for medical, and if it was more really simulation in gaming. So it really kind of deterred from where I was going. I kind of put it in the background. Uh, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to type
Okay, I think we've lost you there just for a
Still seeing
second.
where I was going. Yep.
Okay, here you come back. Would you like to hide webcam so improving performance? I'm going to go ahead and hide your webcam so we can hear you a little better as we can continue to move forward. Sorry,
Sure.
keep going. So you went maybe
Oh,
online and
that's
you
fine.
started doing some searching online.
Yeah, I did. I did some searching online and came across the Lance's website, his actual link to SimGhost, and I thought, well, if anybody's there's at least a name, and went ahead and sent a cold email message to Lance, and we've been talking, trying to get this organized back and forth. I'll start off. I'm 40 something, and we I've been with a company who has been doing theme parks and events for almost 20 years, and I think it's time to try to move my direction, my career in a different direction, and to kind of really have some serious conversations with how my career is going and what I want to do, something different. And the simulation kind of sparked my interest with the whole production end of things. I didn't necessarily want to be a nurse and to teach medical techniques, but really the applications of how you train somebody into becoming a nurse. And that's a little bit more of my background as well as in training. And so it kind of more further sparked some additional inquiry as to talking to my friends who are in TV video and Photoshop and whatnot. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Great. Yeah, and that sounds like a perfect mix for a simulation technician. That interest in audio video technology, helping folks learn through the application of their kind of training environments. That's spot on for the position. So cool. So you sent in some questions which we're looking at here, and I kind of read through those. And obviously, I have some other additional resources to kind of throw at you. But we'll just kind of go down the list and start through some of these questions because I think they were great questions to kind of get us up and running with regards to our webinar today. So the first question is: are there any websites or organizations that I should be following for news and techniques being used elsewhere? So the first one I would say is healthysimulation.com. So this is the free resource website that I put together starting in April of 2010. It's provided about almost 400 articles now that are really specific to simulation, primarily obviously medical simulation. Um, it serves about 6,000 people a month now from around the world with regards to this particular information. I'll do product videos and demonstrations. For example, here's one about the Pyxis Med Station where I was flown out to Chicago, sponsored kind of a trip to learn more. And so produced about 2 7-minute videos on the Pyxis Med Station and how it can be used in nursing simulation labs now, as opposed to just being in a hospital. So, and it continues on throughout the various types of mannequins or other types of news or information. So anyone who wants to kind of send me anything that's relevant with regards to medical simulation, I will always put up on here as best as I possibly can. There's obviously a large queue of articles and videos out there. So I'd say that this is a really great place. You can sign up for our free newsletter here, and basically that will give you a monthly newsletter that will summarize all the best things that I've kind of picked up over the month or posted out there over the month. And this says 1,500 champions, but as of the time of this in October, it's just about 50 shy of being 2,000 subscribers. So there's a lot of community there. You can also get connected with us on LinkedIn through that, and that's one thing that I'll touch on right away. Going back to LinkedIn, real quick here. I would highly suggest that if you're interested, I know you're changing careers at this point, or looking to change your careers. If you haven't already invested a little bit of time into LinkedIn, I highly suggest it. It's basically like if you want to think about it as the professional version of Facebook for professionals. So basically, I spent about an hour or so updating my resume initially when I got started here and added some keywords and terms for who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish, and then basically provides a summary for all of my previous experiences. So this is a great way for headhunters who are looking for particular types of positions to get filled to see all the kind of the opportunities that you're bringing to the table. There's also a lot of great jobs boards through LinkedIn where you can basically search for a job, and if they've set it up through LinkedIn, you can apply for the job with.
Lance, are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I just tried to unmute, mute and unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I think probably we'll lose each other just a little bit, but I'll keep coming back, muting
Okay.
and unmuting. So sorry. What I was saying was that uh, if you if I don't know how much of that you caught, but basically LinkedIn is a great way to build up your resume in a digital format and connect with other colleagues and peers. Um,
Okay.
in a professional way. So it's a really handy tool, and I highly recommend utilizing that, especially in medical simulation. It's definitely something that's being widely adopted by this community very quickly. So I'm going to close this down because we're eating up a lot of bandwidth here. The next website that you're going to want to check out is obviously the SimGhosts website. So I brought that up here. SimGhosts is an annual hands-on training event. That is expanding internationally into other regions, but just took place. Its third annual meeting in San Antonio, Texas, provided 4 days of hands-on training. It's sponsored by all of the major vendors within the space, and basically we also provide for an online subscription opportunity for those of us who couldn't have made it to the meeting. This year we had about 172 sim techs from around the world and 30 plus vendor representatives representing, I believe it was 11 different companies. So you can become a subscriber to SimGhost. That's going to get you connected with our private LinkedIn discussion group where you can start to see the types of conversations that sim techs are having internationally, as well as videos from our previous events. So we've recorded a lot of the content. Some of it's in HD, some of it isn't, but it's a lot of the presentations from the last two events are recorded and online and available there. If you're still considering kind of becoming a subscriber, you can check out the keynote addresses from both the 2012 and 2013 meetings for free. So there's some really great crossover there. Last year, we did a discussion where we had someone from CAE, which is a major simulation player worldwide with regards to mining simulation, not only healthcare simulation but mining simulation and um, flight aviation simulation, especially for the C-130s and other types of major aircraft. And they brought in a simulation technician from the aviation world who taught us all about kind of standards and developing kind of a training program for that kind of position. So that was really fascinating. And this year we heard from Timothy Clapper, Dr. Clapper, about team steps and how communication within healthcare can be it's time for it to evolve into new ways, and how simtex can be part of that process by engaging in new kinds of ways to communicate, because obviously we're bringing in a new technology into these spaces. And so with that, there's a lot of kind of new need to really explain, define, and utilize technology in a lot of new ways. So I give a presentation at various conferences about, how to bring a sim tech into your program. A little bit of a different question than we're answering here of how do you get that job. But, I've had calls with IT directors from around the country, and, they call me up and they say, Lance, I've been working with the nursing program for the last 6 months, and I've really gotten about 80% of the issues that they were having dialed in and dealt with. But that last 20%, and I tell them that last 20% never disappears. And that's really why we need sim techs. Sim techs are the folks that are responsible for that day-to-day operation and that technical operation and hands-on operation of these, not only the mannequins, but the audio video systems, all of the computers that go with, like laptops and desktops for all of these new expanded simulation programs, all the AV systems and servers, any of the advanced kind of medical equipment that's used to train on. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a sim tech in terms of that hands-on operation. And one of the things that I always try to point out to folks during that is to I have a slide somewhere in here about talking about the price difference between a sim tech and a, say, a clinical educator. A sim tech, probably you're looking at a salary range of around 55 to 65,000 a year, and some nurse educators can get paid upwards of um, well, I know some who get paid, upwards of 200,000 at some of the major universities. So obviously, there's a range there, but the average for a nurse educator is somewhere around 90,000. So a lot of programs are asking clinical educators to be the person responsible for the technology and the day-to-day operation. And financially, that really doesn't make sense, especially because not everyone's background is kind of in technology, and that's not everyone's passion. So that you really can stretch programs can stretch their dollar by hiring a sim tech. So there's a lot of opportunity for folks such as yourself, because more and more these hospitals and universities and colleges or other training programs that are healthcare specific are really starting to figure out that this technology really needs that additional support. So, that being said, kind of continuing along with those conference discussions, there's a great couple other ones that are vendor based. So they're going to be very specific to obviously their products and services, but are also really great resources. Are the Laerdal Sun. Those are regional events that happen all over the country. I think there's one actually starting tomorrow in San Antonio. I believe it's at the nursing program that we hosted SimGhosts at, actually. So there's a lot of presentations. Some of them are recorded. I think there's actually going to be a live stream, which is something that we developed through Healthy Sim Admin, which I'll talk about in a second. And those are really great. So you definitely want to check out the Laerdal Sun. And I'll go ahead and send you post a link and send a link to you after
Cool.
this. Those happen, a couple of times a year in different locations. The next one I'd really also highly suggest. It's very affordable to go to the Laerdal Sun. I think it's about $100, but the one that's actually is completely free is the CAE Healthcare HPSN events. So there's regional HPSNs, and HPSN stands for Human Patient Simulation Network. And there's a national one, and then there's a regional one, and they're great meetings for also vendor specific to the CA Healthcare brand, which was formerly Meti. Just a kind of a note there. Meti was producers on the mannequins, and then a lot of companies have come together and under CA Healthcare's wing, and they offer great training opportunities as well. And that, like I said, is free. So the HPSN in California, I don't know, 5 years ago now, was the first one I ever went to when I was just starting to become interested in becoming a syntech. So I basically brought up my resume and flew myself out there. And because it was a free event, I think I stayed with some friends and learned a lot about, the field and kind of getting my feet wet there. So that's another really great resource.
Nice.
So just touching on quickly, since we have a small audience here, this is a 2-day event I put together called Healthy Sim Admin last year that was totally recorded professionally in HD. This was supported by and sponsored by UNLV's School of Nursing at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Laerdal, Beeline Medical, and Pocket Nurse. And basically, it was there's 15 hours of administrative footage that are downloadable, purchasable through this website. And basically, it's great for anyone who's kind of directing or trying to be in charge of a simulation program with regards to anything from simulation program development, funding sources, daily operations, research development, IT infrastructures, and more. There could be some things here that might interest you, but more than likely, SimGhost is definitely the place for you to kind of initially check out. But there are some free videos here and some other things, so definitely worth kind of investigating with regards to more of this field. So that being said, we have a little bit of survey data that I'd like to share with you, because I know one of your questions was kind of like a little bit about the backgrounds of where these folks come from. So
Right.
let's just take a look at some survey data from the 2012 meeting, and then we'll go to 2013 after this. But here you can see what type of simulation program do you work with primarily. So I believe there was about 161 attendees at the 2012 meeting. You can see that most of them come from a hospital or kind of medical center, but most of them come from a nursing school, and then a medical center, and then a medical school, and then it's kind of smaller amounts from there. But we've got everything from EMS and fire departments. I'm still waiting for the space program for NASA to show up. I'm really excited about that day. I have seen them around at other conferences, but I'm not sure that they've attended SimGhost just yet. So that's kind of like the breakdown for that. Is your lab associated with a nonprofit? Most of them are nonprofit entities. Is your healthcare simulation tech position part-time? It's most of them are full-time positions, so about 80% there. How are you compensated? Some of them are volunteer. Most of them are salary positioned jobs, so that's good news there. Most of them do receive benefits. I would think so with having a full-time job salaried. How many hours a week do you perform your sim tech related work? So this is kind of again trying to identify if it's a part-time or full-time. Most of the folks are falling between 30 and 40 hours a week. Is your sim lab associated with a nonprofit? Oops, I think that's a repeat question. Nonprofit. And here's the kind of the degree background for most of the SimTechs from the 2012 meeting. You can see that about 40% have a bachelor's degree. So that's kind of like the mid-level range, obviously, for education. That's kind of primarily what your competition would be if you were looking at a position. But I've hired SimTechs with uh, just an associate's degree. I've hired SimTechs with master's degree. So there's definitely a range out there. I myself, like I said, I had a bachelor's in audio video production and film and digital media theory, as well as kind of a certification as a firefighter and EMT. So there's kind of a range. What is your primary educational background if you're non-medical? You can see that most about 50% of the participants last year were. The next highest number is IT, and I think that number actually really did grow in 2013 to about 50% of our participants were from an IT background. And then if you do have an educational, primary educational background, medical, again, we see that some of the folks, 51% did not, or excuse me, 36% did not have a medical background at the 2012 event. A lot of them know nurses. Okay. So, let's continue there. Well, actually, while we're there, let's just talk about that real quick. One of the questions you asked was, do you need to be a nurse? And the answer is absolutely not. In fact, there's an article that I've written on healthysimulation.com called what to look for when hiring a sim tech. So I'm going to just type that, healthy simulation, what to really look for. See if that pops up. And basically, the article talks about that there are nursing schools out there that ask me to kind of review their job description when they're posting it or posting it online. And, say it's a small community college and their SimTech position is asking for someone with a master's degree, nurse prepared master's degree. And I when they talk to me on the phone, I say, well, what is the point of that? Because if you already have 12 nurses in your faculty educational group, why do you want to bring in somebody who can already do a lot of that? Why not bring in somebody who knows how to deal with technology and expand your resource pool in terms of what you're capable of doing? So, I always ask them this question: what do you think is more important for a sim tech to be able to answer immediately? What does a sudden drop in blood pressure indicate in a geriatric case? Or why is the microphone not working and the computer making that terrible beeping noise? And I think that clearly really summarizes very quickly, what the position of sim tech should really be about that technology and about that operational engagement. So this is a great article to kind of for you to check out and read. And again, I will keep this up so we can link to it after.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, what do you find to be the most challenging aspect of your position? So, a lot of them are saying a lack of training is the difficulty. So, again, SimGhost, the training event, is dedicated to trying to fix that very problem. And are you responsible for the selection of technology-based equipment? 60% said yes in the 2012 event. So I think that that's really important because it demonstrates that overwhelmingly most of the audience at these types of events are specifically geared towards um, uh, are going to be people who are going to purchase technology. So, and help to gear future purchases of technology in terms of that integration. So I think that there's a lot of power behind the voice of simulation technicians and will continue to grow there. So here's a really important question for you. I know that you asked was, what are the average hourly rates? Now, obviously some folks live in rural community in Montana, and others live in the heart of Los Angeles. So different prices for different regional locations. But overall, we saw that primarily it was falling between the $20 and $30 range for some individuals. Now, I think these numbers out here, these outliers, these are probably more volunteers, and over here on the right are probably more folks that have a nursing or educational background or medical background on top of and can do some of the clinical coordination work, because we find that the folks that come to our meeting, some of them are just responsible for the operation, whereas there's also a great deal number of people out there who, like I said, are nursing educators who have then been tasked with doing the technology and the operation. And while I think it's possible to do that, I think that you get more bang for your buck by having individuals who are specifically trained in their professions and their backgrounds, and then they can do that work a little bit better. So let's just go through this SimGhost 13 survey data, because I think it's also really useful. Please select your healthcare background. So 32% said whatever I've picked up from the sim lab. So that should really demonstrate to you that you don't have to have a background, or even 40% if you add this extra non yet. So that's a really good number to really think about. It really should not be weighted on your medical background, because a lot of the healthcare stuff that's going on, if you're very willing to show up and learn, and I think that, Ryan, this is one of the most important things I could recommend for any interview that you go through, is that in simulation, really, you don't ever get to stop learning. you know, that's
Right.
kind of what's great about it, and that's why some people excel in it and other people just drop out really quickly, because A, it is technology based, but B, there's just so much to go. I mean, if you don't have a medical background, well, then every time a scenario unfolds in front of you, there's so much to learn from it. Why did they add this narcotic or drug, or why did they why are they doing chest compressions at a slower rate? Is that an error, or is that supposed to be like that? How do you intubate? There's just so much great stuff. So if you're willing to show up every day and learn something new, I think that that's what I look for and try to apply for when doing these types of events. Or excuse me, when these types of interviews, is like, hey, how willing is this individual to show up and learn something new every day? Because I have worked with Simtex that after 2 years, they were tired of learning. They didn't want to do any more changes. And it's like, well, simulation is something that's so cutting edge. No one really knows how to do it perfectly. We're all kind of learning together.
Right.
So, we really need to hold on to that. So some kind of background in military, firefighter, EMT, looks like we've got about 20% there. And then we have nurse. We had about 15% there, attending the 2013 meeting. So then again, here's the kind of the breakdown, of anyone from a technical field. And as you can see, it's IT is the strongest again at 20%. But then, I'd almost put like audio production and video production. Those are all computer engineering. Those are all very technical things. So
Right.
really, that's coming from all over. Photography, electronics, theater. We have people coming from theater and education. So it comes from all over. So it really makes for a really great conference, because you're meeting a lot of interesting people from a lot of different backgrounds. Type of simulation program, allied health education. So allied health kind of means like your EMS or X-ray techs, and also like, your nurses and anyone kind of, anyone under really healthcare is kind of allied health. Obviously dental is its own kind of thing. Law enforcement, medical, nursing, etc. So that's kind of some interesting information. Now here's some really, these are great kind of things to help you along on your path. How long have you been working as a sim tech? You can see that 40% less than 1 year. So again, there's a lot of opportunity out there for new people. In your typical work week, how many hours do you spend performing your sim tech responsibilities? A bulk of them, again, for about 50% are full time or more. Uh, there's your average again for the salary range, anywhere from $20 to $30. And do you have enough training to perform your job effectively? Split half and half. So there's a lot of need for more training out there, which is part of the reason why we do webinars like this and other conferences. To what degree do you influence SimLab technology based purchase decisions? And you can see that this year we broke it down into just how much influence they had, and you could see that really almost over 80% of of these folks are really responsible for the sim tech in terms of or simulation technology in their lab. So it's a really kind of really unique position to be in this day and age. So that being said, I'll just pause real quick because I know that was a lot of information. Do you have any questions now? I mean, I've still got quite a few things to run through, but that was kind of a nice little background about where we're at.
It is, and I think one of the other questions that it's not listed here is how do the hospitals work closely with the Simtex and or um, school centers like UNLV?
Sure. So the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas, for example, where I was the director, just as an example, that was a collaborative partnership actually between three Nevada system of higher education schools, UNLV nursing school being one of them. Then there was the Nevada State College nursing school, and then the University of Nevada School of Medicine, which is actually based up in Reno, but sends their third and fourth year students and some of their residents down to Las Vegas. So that was kind of a collaborative partnership where I technically had three bosses from three different schools, three different deans, and they owned the school, they owned the center in terms of a 40-40-20 split where the two nursing schools made up for 80% of the ownage. Now the medical school, obviously working with the hospital, the county hospital down there, had a lot of had a lot of needs and partnerships through the hospital. So sometimes we would offer them discounted rates, or we would work with them, or host something that was being done through the school of medicine. But we were very careful to kind of draw a little bit of a line in the sand where, all of our students that, whether it be nursing or medicals or paid a fee to be in that space. So if the hospital itself wanted to do something that was very hospital specific, we said, well, look, you're going to have to pay in order to gain access to this particular facility, because again, our learners themselves have to pay to kind of utilize the spaces. And that's just
Gotcha.
the way the state worked it out. Now you might find a whole total gambit of schools and hospital partnerships. There's plenty of collaborative partnerships between hospitals and schools of various sizes and shapes out there, and some of whom are interested in doing more of that, some of whom want to get out of doing that because it's, sometimes various groups don't pay, but they still utilize the center in various ways. So it's definitely kind of a mix. So it depends on what region you're at, and how much simulation has advanced in that region, and then what collaborative partnerships have been established already, or are about to be established. But obviously, the CSC, for example, was about a $17 million initial investment in terms of equipment and the building kind of renovations. Plus, you had about $500,000 worth of staff every year initially, plus supplies and on and on and on. So there was a huge investment that was made by the schools in terms of, and then ongoing fees for security, police, legal support, and building maintenance and all the rest of IT. So these things can add up very quickly. I mean, a single mannequin can sell for upwards of $100,000 or $80,000, $60,000. So there's a lot of investment there, and I think that that's why you will see right now around this time, especially collaborative partnerships like that.
Gotcha.
So what can you expect as a medical simulation tech for day to day? Just kind of moving down some of these questions. So, for example, my day as a sim tech when I worked at LA Harbor College down in Wilmington, California, I would get there about an hour before the nursing students would show up. I would turn on all of the systems. I would make sure that everything was clean and prepped. Usually, if I was the sim tech from the day before or the sim tech from the day before, we had a great system where we would kind of set up the room as best as possible. Set up the scene. So what that would mean is we go in there and like add a wig or various types of moulage meaning kind of like a advanced makeup, like a wound or bleeding or any other type of props, like whether it be a turn not a tourniquet, but an armband, or whether it be kind of a special type of dressing on a wound. That might include some mayonnaise on there to make it look like yellow dyed mayonnaise that it started to get pussy. So usually those were set up the night before by myself or the other sim tech, so that in the morning it was a little less stuff to deal with. Test out the audio systems and the computer systems. Go to the debriefing room, which is that room where while one student is in your simulation lab kind of going through the experience, you'll have other learners in a debriefing room watching that particular case scenario. and you can making sure that that TV is on and can see the video cameras in there. There's another video I think it would be great for you to see, one I actually produced while I was there. YouTube.com. I'm going to do LA Harbor nursing simulation. I can tell my computer's going kind of slow here, so we'll give that. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So this is an orientation. There's two videos here. There's a tutorial, an orientation to the space, which is about 8 minutes long. It's been viewed about 3,000 times. And then there's a simulation lab kind of promo video I made. It's this is again like 4 years ago, and this one's got 20,000 views. We won't watch those here, but I'll send you the link. They're great kind of introductions to simulation lab spaces and the types of work that we do. So from there, once everything was kind of set up and really ready to go, I would, continue to make any narcotics that I needed to do. And for like, so for example, we'd have vials of just water, but I would label them as the narcotics that they were and make sure that the medication drawers were stocked, make sure that the patient chart for that particular case scenario was there, set up the initial vital signs of the mannequin. So I went into the mannequin software and I set, instead of it being 80 beats per minute, I would set it to 62 with a trend of over 5 minutes, increasing to 80 or dropping 20 more, depending on what that case scenario was. I'd also get out all the case scenarios and put those on a cart with all of the moulage or prop boxes for those particular case scenarios. So I'd have everything really ready for the day, ready to go. And then once the initial kind of, once the nursing students all got there, they would watch that kind of intro video, the orientation to the lab room. Then if they were new to simulation, the nursing instructor would bring them in and we would do a joint orientation of them to the space and show them how to use the mannequin. Then they would start to do simulation where I would sit at the control station for the mannequin and the audio video equipment, making sure that the other room would have a good view of what was happening, while my nursing instructor sometimes also helped to run the mannequin, but primarily was watching through the two-way glass mirror what the students were doing in the room and then kind of acting out as the voice of the patient so that there could be a direct engagement. They were also taking notes for their debriefing. So after the scenario kind of concluded, I might have gone in there and played a doctor for a minute and given them some medications and then disappeared again, something like that, like a small cameo, if you will, to kind of move the scenario along, depending on where they were. Wouldn't really offer help or anything, but just sometimes I was a mean doctor, and that was the point of the scenario, was to talk about poor communication between healthcare professionals or other types of situations, whatever the scenario really called for. The clinical instructor and the student would go back into the room. I'd make sure that the audio video system again was working because they would debrief and rewatch the entire kind of scenario unfold again for them. And in the meantime, I would start swapping out. So I might change the sex or gender of the particular mannequin and add a different kind of wigs or other types of props. I would change the patient chart out. I put all those other things away, make sure that they were cleaned and put away, and then load up that scenario and kind of rinse and repeat. Normally, we'd do 8 scenarios a day, 1 per hour, because it would take about 10 to 15 minutes for a scenario and then about 45 minutes for a debrief. Obviously, there's a lunch in there somewhere. And then at the end of the day, I'd set up the last scenario and make sure that any video recordings that needed to be deleted were, and do system tests and update the computers and any other work that needed to get done in that small space. And then obviously when I worked at the Clinical Simulation Center, that was a 31,000 square foot facility as opposed to just a single one room lab where I worked previously. So there was always something to be done, whether it be taking care of task trainers or going down to the surgical hall and fixing something there, or the standardized patient hall. So it just can really expand out from there depending on what your responsibilities are. But you might be doing things like setting up task trainers, so like an individual arm, which is just like a low fidelity, which means low realism, and you set up that arm so that maybe you set up 12 of them with like blood through them so that the students can learn how to start to do injection on a simulated arm as opposed to how they used to do it, which is on each other. So anything like that, to computer server reboots or computer updates or fixing broken technology or equipment, changing out bulbs and projectors, and scheduling maintenance, and then obviously calling with vendors and dealing with any of the things that need to be updated or fixed or repaired. And I also like to include video production in there in terms of helping to create videos that are orientations or tutorials for faculty and students based off whatever the needs are to help kind of integrate that technology. So that's kind of a day to day general kind of look. And then there's obviously team meetings where you talk with each other, or you share something about your position with the other team, or you know, in many simulation lab programs, you're not just the director, you're also a sim tech and a director, and you also help with, taking the trash out and doing whatever. So, you wear many hats when you're working in simulation.
Nice.
Yeah. So, what would a typical schooling day for someone entering this schooling for someone entering this field? So, I'd say that the best place to learn anything right now is by visiting your local simulation lab programs, getting some day to day training by becoming an intern or unpaid intern, or some type of volunteer based position where you could get really hands on with the equipment and what's going on there. For specific training, I kind of mentioned those conferences. I think obviously SimGhost is specifically dedicated to this. There are other medical simulation conferences out there, but they're more geared towards research and kind of the clinical educator, as opposed to SimGhost, which is specifically dedicated to just the sim tech in that particular operation. So you're really getting, it's also more affordable for that salary range. So it's definitely geared specifically towards that kind of person and that individual. But that being said, again, the best way you can do is get into a simulation lab as a volunteer and help to support. Maybe there's something locally going on in your area. You never know. We promoted a volunteer into a weekend part time position, which then became a eventually became a full time permanent position. Over a couple years. So you just never know what can happen with that. And you obviously, if you're up with competition for one position and you have some simulation experience as opposed to the rest of the candidates that have none but have a similar background, you're already a leg up with regards to your opportunity there. So, um, and then just visiting other simulation lab programs anywhere you go. If you go to any major city, there's going to be a simulation lab there. Just call ahead of time and say, hey, I'm interested in this field, I'd really love to kind of get a little hands on, or can I follow your sim tech around for a day, or have lunch and pick their brains. I mean, that's how
Right.
I really learned this field. I went to a couple of conferences, and then I started visiting other simulation labs and just tagging along and volunteering and trying to like absorb as much information as possible. But right now, there is work being done on certifications, and there is work being done on training programs. But again, it's so new that really right now those are not readily available just yet.
Gotcha.
So, do you need to have TV video editing, SPX application knowledge, robotic knowledge? I'd say that TV editing knowledge is helpful. I'm a little bit biased. There are some IT individuals who have difficulty communicating because they specifically only work with computers. Where in the AV world, you usually have to work with a lighting department and an acting department, a directing department, and a camera department to all capture this one particular thing so that a story can be told. So you really have to work with groups and communicate. And I think that there's a lot of communication that happens there. But more than that, I think it's great to have some AV production experience, because then you can make things like orientation videos or tutorials, and you can really extend the program. I mean, if we go back to this LA Harbor nursing program, I think if you show up and you say, hey, this 5 minute tour, if you were to do that 20,000 times, that would probably add up to about $30,000 in costs in terms of just the time of that staff person. But you paid
Right.
me 1 week of work, and I've now you can show it 20,000 times. I always point that out as being a benefit. Is it necessary? No, but it's helpful. I'm sorry, SPX. I don't. What does that mean?
Special effects.
Oh, special effects. Oh, okay.
Missed the
Um,
F.
oh, is that this?
Right, typo.
Typo. Okay. So yeah, special effects. I would say probably not. It doesn't get more complicated than maybe if you were working for the military. There might need to be some need there for some special effects, but maybe some titling on those videos. In terms of who we're seeing, or adding text to a screen. That's pretty much as complicated as I've seen it get. Maybe a few, diagrams or charts, but nothing too special there.
I
Um,
guess more of like moulage special effects.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, I think that that's definitely a great thing to have, but I think that that's something that should be potentially, there's some opportunity to learn some of that stuff, but I think that would be best, you would be best served by maybe picking up a book and kind of perusing it. There's a couple of books I've mentioned on Healthy Sim. You could take a course, but I think that would probably be best served by you taking a course after you find an employer, because that's a kind of a nice skill set to have. But I think it's a benefit, and that's especially nice to have them pay for the course. You know what I mean?
Right.
So do you need to be a nurse? I think we kind of talked about that in a medical background. I think it's great if you have the time to become an EMT. I think paramedics make really great Simtex. Paramedics are like a 9 months of training, whereas an EMT can be done in a 10-week advanced, accelerated course over a summer. An EMT license, you learn how to package someone up from a car crash, and you learn how to give them oxygen and start chest compressions, and you learn about basic, pharmacology and physiology and that type of thing. With a paramedic degree, you actually do intubation and you actually do all those like injections and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really great kind of field. But 9 months and $10,000 is a huge investment. Whereas you could become an EMT or even just kind of do some basic EFR training and then kind of maybe sign up for some ATLS courses, advanced trauma life support courses, and get some hands-on experience without having to actually do it on live patients. You could just do it on, other simulation mannequins or task trainers, and just kind of get the feel and experience for what those things are like. But again, I remind people that the technical experience is what we're really trying to go after here, and the medical experience, while beneficial, can be trained, because again, these are healthcare locations with enough of those people and that knowledge and doing this process anyway. What they don't know is, how to reboot the server in such a way that you don't potentially damage the RAID drives or what have you. And again, it does help to have a medical background, but I would always look at someone with a medical background without technology background as second to someone with more technology background without medical background. What current schools are offering degrees in medical simulation technology? There are zero. There is a master's degree in medical simulation. However, it's not technology. Uh, I'm sure that will change in the near future. There are training programs that some of my groups are working on in various capacities, but there's nothing as of just yet. Is there a strong demand for medical simulation technicians? I think so. I think it's going to be growing, and it's going to be growing rapidly once folks really realize that to invest in simulation, it's not about just having the shiny equipment, but you also need to have the staff to support it. I mean, I've heard of labs with 80 plus mannequins where it's like a ghost town in there. No one is using anything, and nothing is getting done, and it's because these schools maybe got a grant or some type of huge investment from some donor, but they never thought about the staff issue, and so now there's all this shiny equipment, but it's not being used. So I think a lot of schools are going to see that to get that return on investment, they really have to create a process where any client, and I'm saying a client like it could be a nursing student, a medical student, or any external revenue generating individual who shows up at that facility, should be able to just come right in, show up at a simulation scenario. It's running for them. They don't have to do anything other than do the training that they need in order to kind of continue with their healthcare career. So to do that, though, you need to have someone scheduling the time slots. You need to have somebody prepping the mannequins. You need to have somebody building the scenarios. You really need a team, and then you need a director to kind of manage the budget and all the staff. And those groups they're more and more becoming more and more prevalent, where 10 years ago, there were maybe 100 simulation centers in the United States, and now there's over 1,000. And with that kind of number change, eventually you're going to see this dramatic change in terms of the ways that those centers that are successful and those are not, eventually there'll be this kind of shift, and the ones that are successful are the ones that are going to make this investment. So I think that there's going to be a strong demand, and it's only going to get larger. I mean, every time I've ever seen a job for a simulation technology specialist, within a month, it's usually gone. And it's great for the folks like myself who've been doing this for only 5 years. We're now like grandfathered into some type of like next tier experience. So it's very quick to kind of get up and ramped and like be able to kind of hop around and use that experience to be able to kind of upgrade your career in terms of your pay and the rest of it. So how does the field also include simulator training, say for ER teams and surgical units using the Da Vinci robots? So that's a great question. So for like emergency room or emergency department, as they're being more readily called now. So you basically, you'll have a high fidelity mannequin. So say, with all the warranties and bells and whistles, maybe you have an $80,000 mannequin which can do intubation and bleed on command. That is picked up in an ambulance. Again, healthcare training team, and that is delivered to the emergency department. There's a handoff between those two teams. There's someone running the mannequin, maybe in the corner of the room through a laptop, a wireless laptop. There's cameras that are kind of in situ in the space in situations simulation, somewhere either in the ceiling or they've been brought in on roller wheels, and they're recording everything that's happening so that the team can go through and do not only team management but team communication as well as skills applications for all of the team members that are there normally dealing with such a trauma based situation. There's a lot of opportunity to use high fidelity mannequins in those experiences and then talk about, team training and communication and debriefing afterwards. It's a really powerful. I just recently did one for the, let's see, healthy simulation again, and that's LSU Simulab. You can see a great example of a emergency department trauma team from Louisiana as they engage with some Simulab products that are basically torsos that they can cut into in real time. So cut open the abdomen belly and do surgery on a nicked aorta inside of the stomach with the intestines and blood everywhere, and everyone in the room, is dealing with this particular issue. So here it is: Simulab Trauma Man Surgical Abdomen In Situ video at LSU Health. So this is a really fantastic video. I think you'll find a lot of enjoyment out of this one. You can see how the task trainer is being used in that particular situation. I'll give it a second to load here. And Da Vinci again. Don't think Da Vinci Prime too much is being utilized, because the reason being is that the task trainers, they do get limited in some ways in terms of the capabilities of what they have. So, for example, the Simulab Trauma Man is very good for a torso for cutting open, but it doesn't have chest compressions in terms of the chest doesn't automatically rise and fall. So it's a little less mechanical. It's a little more kind of biological, if you will, even though, again, it's plastics and other types of things. But you can see here, that's the surgical abdomen. But there's no real computer or technical components running inside of this particular mannequin. And so you might find a difference in terms of the types of mannequins, where you might have two in a room and one might be for cutting and the other one might be for, practicing intubation, or chest compressions, or chest rise and fall, um, with the Da Vinci robot, it's so specific to a particular type of task and procedure that to have a mannequin in the room is probably not likely. They're dealing with such minute kind of particular things. I think they have specialized task trainers that are only for the Da Vinci.
Gotcha.
I've had a chance to use the Da Vinci. It's awesome. There's actually one. You said you're in Vegas, right?
No, Florida right now.
Oh, you're in Florida right now, but you go back and forth to Vegas.
Yeah, I have family out there.
Okay, so there's one at the Summerlin Hospital out in Summerlin,
Okay.
and sometimes they open it up to the public. So keep your eyes peeled, because that's one where I got my chance to go out there and play with it, and I put a rubber band around a penny with the arms. It was really neat. Um, so what would you be expected to pay level? So we kind of talked about that. I think 20 to 30, depending on experience, I think is fine. I think, again, volunteering to get started is a great way to go. Maybe one day a week or even half day a week or something where you can get your hands on experience. How does one earn pay raises? Is it with additional schooling hours or techniques? Well, I think anyone who has like a year of experience in simulation is now a commodity. If you have 2 years of simulation experience, I mean, I'd say that's really solid commodity. So you could very much, look around your local area and see if there's not opportunities, or pay attention to opportunities online, and you could find all kinds of jobs that would pay you a little bit more, because now you have something that is very hard to find in this day and age, which is dedicated hands-on experience with the technology. So. Um, Unless somebody's got a friend that they know that's going to get the job, I think
Right.
that's your best bet. And then, of course, if you were to, say, well, I'll become an EMT, and I'll take that 10-week course, and maybe they pay for it, and maybe then there's a bump. Or, obviously, if you're working with the university and you get advanced higher degrees, they always have to try to find some way of rewarding you for investing back into the system and that type of thing. But I think that having simulation experience is where you're going to find your most pay raise, and potentially even leaving one facility and going to another. Okay, what would a typical top out rate of pay, and or the manager department? Well, so I'd say that if you can get to a managerial position, and obviously you're now in charge of other people, you could see your salary upwards. It could even double. depending on how much experience you have as a manager with, proven experience in simulation. Again, now you got to be in charge of other sim techs and other folks. I see a lot of and make recommendations for a sim tech to get invested into a space and encourage and find ways of bringing in volunteers or student workers so that you can become a slight manager over some individuals. And then when the program continues to grow and expand, that then you become like, they become more staff type full-time or part-time positions. And now, hey, you're the manager now, you're kind of doing more work. And so, you could see upwards of 70,000 to 80,000 for some entry level or small level managerial work, and 120 ish or 110 something like that for high level management over a space, something like that.
Gotcha.
So then lastly, the only other thing I'll say is that jobs and, again, Healthy Simulation does have a jobs listings page. So when people send me jobs that are out there, I'd say that as quickly as I can, I post them up there. So there's been a lot of sim tech job opportunities posted there. Let me just go ahead and close some of these other things because they are lagging. So there's our job listings page there. And then, of course, you can just search online. I think simplyhired.com and indeed.com are two great websites that do have some additional jobs. But then, here's probably a great place to start again on healthysimulation.com because it's just an entire page of jobs that have been listed to me. Some of them are you get out of date from time to time, but I do update them regularly. Once I see that the job's been filled, I take it down. Here's one.
All right.
This is actually the college that my mom works out as a nursing instructor, El Camino College in Torrance, California. So they're hiring a sim tech part-time position in Des Moines, and they're all over. I think I saw one in Florida not too long ago. So I think that was a lot of information. I'm sure I'm going to unmute. Yeah, I'm going to unmute everyone in case there's any questions. Nadine, is this recorded? She asked if it's going to be recorded and available. Yeah, I am recording this, so I will make it. I will put it on. I will put it on the internet at the end of this as a post, so future folks will be able to see it. Did you have any other questions, though, Brian?
I don't think so. I think you covered everything pretty fair. It gave me a lot of stuff to do some research and some legwork on, so I thank you.
Absolutely. I thank you, man, for allowing me to record this presentation because I have gotten this call, in the past, and it's great to be able to share all this information. It's so much fun. But again, now that it's recorded, I can just say, hey, go check this out. Cool. All right. Well, that's that. It's been straight up almost an hour, so that's great. It's a good chunk of time, and I think a lot of information. So please feel free to email me. It's Lance@healthysimulation.com if you have any questions or requests, and I'd be happy to answer any of those questions that you might find. And keep me posted, man. Let me know how it goes and what ends up happening, and I'd love to help you and talk to you in the future as your career progresses.
Sweet. Appreciate that.
Alrighty, man. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you online.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.